Namaskar, I am Dr. Nalini Avinash Wagmare, working as an associate professor in history at Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapit Pune. Today's our topic is related to ancient Indian cultural heritage. So in this lecture, we have to study a meaning and definition of culture, nature and concept of culture, characteristic of culture as well as silent features of Indian heritage and its characteristic, conclusion and few references. So, cultural heritage, various historians, scholars, social scientists given a different opinion about the culture, its heritage, as well as Indian cultural heritage and all other things. So, cultural heritage includes artifacts, monuments, a group of buildings and sites, museums that have a diversity of values, including symbolic, historic, artistic, aesthetic, ethnological, or anthropological, scientific, and social significance. Culture heritage can be defined as the various texts, skills, knowledge, art, object, etc., which have cultural importance are called cultural heritage. Um, Ancient Indian cultural heritage. The Indian culture is the heritage of belief system, technologies, values, language, social norms and traditions which had originated from India. India has always been diverse in terms of culture. There is so because of many inventions and different rulers having influence over the Indian subcontinent. So in Indian culture, while we study detail, then we find that the Namaskar, religion and spirituality differences, language and literature, various language, literature, custom, traditions, food habits, family structure, marriage system, festivals, our Indian culture, epics, painting, agriculture, clothing, music, and dance. Many more also. So, what is exactly the definition of culture? Before directly we study the Indian cultural heritage characteristic, it is better to we understand the meaning and various historian scholars' opinion about the Indian culture or cultural heritage definitions of the scholars on this. So, culture includes knowledge, belief, and morality, whereas civilization is means for attaining other objects. In spite of their differences, both are interdependent and cannot be studied without each other. The term culture has been differently defined by different sociologists. So, according to Taylor, culture is an organized body of conventional understanding manifested in art and craft, which persisting through tradition characterize a human group. Then the other scholars' opinion also we find here about Indian culture. Joseph Pepper is of the view that culture is the quintessence of all natural goods of the world and those of gifts and qualities which while belong to men beyond the immediate sphere of his needs and wants. E. H. Webel also given opinion about the culture. Culture is the sum total of integrated learned behavior patterns which are characteristic of the members of a society, which are therefore not the results of biological inheritance. Robert T. also given his opinion about culture. Culture is the body of thought and knowledge, both theoretical and practical, which only man can possess. So, A.W. Green also given his opinion about that culture is socially transmitted system of idealized ways in knowledge, practices, and beliefs, along with the antifacts that knowledge and practice produce and maintain as they change in time. Definition of culture, while we are studying the foreign scholars also given opinion under that Bogart does given that culture is all the ways of going and thinking of group of the people. Then the University Education Commission 1948-49 given a simple opinion on culture. Culture is an attitude of mind, an inclination of the spirit, and those who earn for it wish to have vision of greatness, sit in the presence of nobility, see the highest reach and scope of the spirit of man. According to the Commission, our art and literature, our law and history belong to the mainstream of our culture. Then Brown also given his opinion about culture. The culture of the people is the way of life of that people, the things they value, their habits of life, their work of art, their music, their words, their history, briefly what they are, what they do, and what they like. So other historians, scholars' opinion on culture also mentioned here. Then the national culture. After seeing the views on culture, then what is the national culture? The national culture of visualize culture and its importance in these words. The existing schism between the formal system of education and the country's rich and varied cultural tradition needs to be bridged. The preoccupation with the modern technologies cannot be allowed to save new generation root in the Indian history and culture. Deculturization, dehumanization, alienation must be avoided at all cost. So our two national festivals mentioned here. Then what was the nature of this culture? The term culture will imply all those things which man has made for his physical, mental, and spiritual advancements. Thus, in a way, the word culture stands for the history of man. Then, what was the characteristic of culture, classification of culture? Culture means a way of life of a society. A large number of factors have to be considered to make an estimate of culture of society. So here the classification of culture first: communal culture, composite culture, individual culture, national culture, plural culture, and world culture. While we have the classification second type of culture under that material culture under the comes man-made objects and things, whereas the non-material culture we find attitude, ideals, and values, etc. So two types of culture we find: one is material culture, another one is non-material culture. So, what was the main characteristic of culture? Acquired tracks of members, transformation of culture, a continuous process, sense of oneness, belongings, dynamic nature of culture. We not said culture only static one; it's a continuous process one. So, what is the characteristic of this culture? From the above definition, it comes amply clear that in sociologically, culture has specific meaning and characteristic. In sociology, culture means the heritage of a child and that the culture persists through traditions. It is the product of human behavior and gaining knowledge through the group. It is system of learned behavior and set procedure. Some of the silent features of sociological culture mentioned here. Culture is not individual concept, but on the other hand, it is a social concept. It does not relate to individual behavior, but the concerned group behavior also considered here. Culture has a link with the past. Without past, culture would not have survived. Culture preserves those features of the past which are of eternal nature. It discards what has been socially condemned. So, since preserving past is the quality of human society, therefore it is found not in the animal but in the human society alone. Culture constantly undergoes change and adapts itself to the environments. Internal adaptation is absolutely necessary due to the environment development. So, in Indian culture characteristics, so in the first few slides, I mentioned the definitions of various authors about culture and sociologist view on culture. Now, directly we see the Indian cultural characteristic. The Hindu people have had an organized social system for more than 3,000 years. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Dharma Shastras, Griha Sutras have the people of India from the Himalayas to Cape Cameron mentioned in the text. But the large masses in the country followed the authority of custom and practices. Thus, it is one of the miracles of history that such a society survived from last long period to till today. Then our Indian culture is religion oriented. India culture finds its foundation in religion, dharma. Indian concept of religion is different from the essence of Western approach of religion, which is something external and merely an embodiment of rituals. So each authority gives its own list of the sadharana dharma, but the ideals common to all these lists are virtues like truth, non-violence, self-control, and compassion. Dharma is something above one's aim in life, having its root deeply involved in the area of spirituality. Dharma binds the Indian way of life. differentiates a man from the beast. So, spirituality is the essence of Indian culture. Knowing thyself, knowing oneself is the fundamental object of Indian culture. Indian saints, philosophers, all have maintained that in order to acquire complete knowledge, a man first of all should know himself. Spirituality leads to perfection and well-being of all. Then it's a religious tolerance. Secularism is the modern concept of designate the ancient concept of religion tolerance in our country. So different religions have been preached, propagated, but religion have never been an issue of conflict among the people belong to different religion and communities. Religions have taught people to suppress violence instead of being cause of it. About the characteristic of tolerance, it is commented that tolerance is a fundamental postulate of Indian thought that every kind, if life has its own contribution to make to human welfare. We have in India Christian, Buddhist, Jain, Muslims, and Parsis, mosques since 1,000 years and more. Assimilating capacity in Indian culture. Indian culture has the capacity to assimilate all the protesting webs in itself. It has been happening since the time when the very first seed of Indian culture was sown. The credit of giving this capacity goes to the founding pillars of Indian culture. The Aryans and since then, all the revolting religious attitudes and views have merged within it to form the composite culture of India. Hinduism has accepted all the religions under its umbrella, and this has enhanced its capacity and adaptability, and even the Muslims have not been exception to it. Adaptability. Indian culture remain unaffected by the invading cultures from the alien lands, and till today it is intact. The cause of this amazing continuity of Indian culture is its quality to accommodate the change from time to time. Adapted to the change of time is a unique feature of Indian culture. Its glorious survival preserves that it is more powerful than the other cultures. Foreigners came and went. Political structure changed, lost and ground, and it has managed quite successfully to adapt changing circumstances to its own necessity. So, from ancient to till modern, various inventions, political structure change, everything change. But which are the good points in Indian culture? Still, those are continuing in our society. So versatile viewpoint of also culture found in our society. Uh, Indian culture is neither one-sided nor lopsided, but versatile and integrate in its approach to life. Indian culture aims at the integral development of man so that he or she may be versatile human being. Then freedom of thought expression found in Indian culture. Indian thought concerning politics, ethics, economic, philosophy, and religion is multicolored. It proves that Indian culture and the way of life permits freedom of thought. Freedom of thought is considered as vital to the development of culture as the essence of culture itself. Independence of thought has always been considered a matter of valuable existence. Freedom of thought has enriched Indian culture. So here in what is the differences between culture and civilization mentioned? While we are studying the culture, it has no precise standard of measurement. That is, we cannot measure the standard of work of Shakespeare or with those of the Kalidas. Whereas civilization, it has very clear and precise standard of measurement because we can measure the standard of efficient of with that of the tractor. Culture is slow process and it takes a long time to take the culture of one society of the other, whereas civilization is a quick process and it is easy to take the civilization of one society to other. While culture, it can be taken only after remodeling our whole life. Civilization, it can be taken without even remodeling our whole life. So while culture consists of ideals, values, mental and emotional groups of people, where civilization it includes material objects and methods of producing and using them. So culture is something internal, whereas the civilization is something which is external. Then directly we go to the salient features of Indian culture. As mentioned earlier, also it is a philosophical and spiritual outlook. Spirituality is the core of our culture. Then tradition of tolerance we find in our Indian culture. Tradition of tolerance is not an attitude in indifference to the others. It is a fundamental posture of Indian thought that every way of life has its own contribution to make human welfare. Sense of synthesis also found in Indian culture. India is a very vast land with natural diversity, but there exists a unity because of sense of synthesis. Then social order based on dharma. A significant quality of our culture is its revolutionary social outlook. It reflects in the very definition of dharma. The geographical knowledge is also included in Indian culture. In India, the earliest reference to the geographical data are found in the Rig Veda also. Then scientific outlook is a major salient features of Indian heritage or culture also. India excels in every branch of science, mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, pharmacology, etc. Our sages realized reality lying in every sphere of life. They invented many things to bring every material comfort to human life. Besides these material comforts, they also discover and realize the truth, all pursuing an omnipotent through their inward journey and brought all those principles into practice. They search out a very natural method of medicine in the name of Ayurveda, which not only cures the disease but increases longevity. Sushruta was the founder of surgery. Then Dhanavante was a pioneer in this field of Charaka, not only described the cause and cures of physical disease, but that throws a complete light on physics elements. Nagarjuna is well known as alchemist of ancient times. So there were masters of metallurgy in our country also. The iron pillar near Qutub Minar in the Delhi is the one such example. The zero decimal system, differential calculus, law of gravitation were known to us from very early times, which were discovered by Western very late. The contribution of Aryabhatta in the field of astronomy have their importance in even today. The zero. Then mathematical knowledge is also one of the basic characteristic of our culture. Vedic Hindu invests special interest in two particular branches of mathematics, geometry and astronomy. That is Jyotisha Shastra. The algebra as well as physics, mechanics in ancient time also we found. Botany in ancient time also, the study of plant life or botany can be traced to very ancient times, depends on the plants for their plants for food and shelter pre-Vedic Indians in this study. Zoology in ancient period also we find Atharva Veda mention the names of many kinds of animals as well as insects and fish. The earliest evidence of interest in animal life in pre-Vedic period is provided by the findings of excavations of various articles such as seals, terracottas, amulets, potteries. These all give information about the geology and other things. Then chemistry also found in ancient period. Indians' achievement in the use of minerals, metallurgical techniques, processing of chemicals of everyday use, extractions of metals from their crafts, even craftsmanship in the manufacture of certain metal products, which require mastery of some chemical process, were quite remarkable. Some of the technical skills exhibited by ancient Indian chemists and metallurgists were indeed noteworthy. There are references to mines of diamond, ruby, gold, silver, copper, lead, and iron in Abul Fazl's book Ain Akbari, which may be considered fairly typical of the testimony of medieval texts in this direction. Then ancient Indian civilization showed skill in the construction of buildings and granaries, in town planning, in the provisions of civic amenities like community baths and other sanitary conveniences. For example, you take the Indus Valley civilization. Then artistic things also we find in our cultural, one of the cultural characteristic. The art of India is recognized as a unique chapter in the history of human endeavor. It criticizes vitality, is astonishing range. Each one of the achievements of our temples, caves, while we find, for example, Ellora Temple, Ajanta, rock cut pagodas of Mahabalipuram, Lingaraja Temple at Bhuvaneshwari, the Sun Temple at Konark, even elephant Nataraja temple at Chidambaram may perhaps be said to be indefinitely superior to the circumstances achievements of our artists. In each and every field of art, architecture, sculpture, painting, dance, drama, and music were we the leaders of the world at that time. Then universal outlook is basic of our cultural characteristic. We have seen the same life force in every being without any discrimination of territory, race, caste, and creed. Our culture is based on the Vedanta, which may be called universal religion. The way of life proposed by our culture is quite suitable for entire mankind. So, in conclusion, we can say that there is inadequate understanding of the traditional Indian wisdom contained in the ancient text and the scriptures. There existed an excellent analysis of the process of learning and teaching in Indian tradition Vidya, that is, learning and scholarship, leads to humility, which in turn lights the path for becoming eligible, component, and qualified on earth through right means. Verse in Hitopadesha mentioned that education imparts intellectual culture secures capacity and stability enable to secure wealth so secured enables to conform to dharma which in turn secures happiness. So well earned affluence must lead to the happiness and this through the path of dharma religious conduct which is our cultural heritage. So at last, the culture is the pursuit of perfection in every walk of life. It is the sweetness and light, the purity of heart, world, and deed which make a cultured man. Our culture reached the highest peak of knowledge preserved in the Veda, which is the most ancient literature of human race. The knowledge was practiced and set a lifestyle. This knowledge inherited and preserved in different forms. If inculcated to our children, it will help to develop into a true man. So these are the reference book you can refer for more information. Agrawal's book Basic Ideas of Education. Then A. Saltekar State and Government in Ancient India. Radhakrishnan book History of Indian Culture. These are the few books you refer for more information. Thank you.